All information has a bias, and recognizing that is an important step towards growing up. And so trying to work out what is the news, what's going on, is partly to wade through bias. So on the one hand, at the moment, we've got the sight of the 4 terrorists dragged into court who've obviously been tortured. Are they terrorists or are they not? I don't know. There was one report saying they don't speak Russian, but there's a video of them apparently saying things in Russian. I can't see their lips moving, but then their lips are so bruised and they're so battered. And equally, I know from my own experience how Russian media adds dubbed voices to the video footage, so you don't know what is true and you don't know what is not true. A bias. Here in the UK, we've got the GB News bias. I happen to think GB News as a concept is a really good thing. I don't even mind the fact that GB News has a right-wing bias. Why not? But there's no corresponding channel. Even dear Owen Jones is not a corresponding channel of left-wing bias. But yeah, if you want to watch GB News, weigh it with a little bit of Owen Jones. I'm not promoting Owen's channel particularly, though he's always engaging. And Richard Tice would brand GB News the People's Channel. At least it survived, which is more than can be said for TV, Talk TV, which of course was brought down by Nadine Dorries, who they hastily got rid of once they realised she was doing more damage than good. But it was all too late. The die had been cast. The Rubicon had been crossed. And this sort of scepticism on GB News against things green, against things woke, against things left. You think in one sense you could take it with a pinch of salt, except in another, all the Conservative MPs watch it, and the dominant wing, the vocal wing of the Conservative Party, which will vote for the next leader, is informed by GB News. So the next leader of the Conservative Party, the leader of the opposition, is going to be a GB News pawn. I find that worrying. And I think this has been an ongoing process, certainly since COVID, when GB News was born. I remember being in a GB, I think it was GB News, I can't remember whether it was GB News or Talk TV, in the studio and pottering around in their green screen and doing some trial footage and stuff, and thinking, this is a very interesting idea. But we need more of these channels, not less. And we need that breadth of bias. Reform UK has taken over GB News, either in the person of Richard Tice, or in the person of Nigel Farage, or in the person of those people, those Conservative MPs who've not quite jumped into the reform bag. And will they jump? I don't know. I think Jacob Rees-Mogg is too attached to his Conservative identity and his old fogey look. Reform seems a little bit too radical for Jacob Rees-Mogg. But I feel there's an issue about the fact there's only one of these channels left, and that channel is very dominant. And Sir Paul Marshall is funding this thing. He's making a loss, but I'm sure he thinks he's doing some good. Who else is prepared to make a loss in order to get out a sort of private debating chamber instead of just having an echo chamber. We want the space to be able to debate issues without fear, and we want to be able to go from one channel to the other and compare, but we can't. And even in YouTube, you lose all your viewers if you don't follow their interests. I defiantly follow my own interest, by the way. So my channel limps forward very slowly, and I heart everything, and I tick things I don't agree with on principle, because very rarely do I give somebody a thumbs down. Very rarely. If something is particularly Islamophobic or particularly anti-Semitic, well, yes, then I thumbs it down. But I probably still give the person a heart for making the effort to actually post the rubbish. And then I get criticised for that. I said, "Oh, you're promoting extremism. You're saluting extremism." Well, if I notice it. Sometimes I read in a cursory fashion. I think, well, yeah, it's not something I agree with, but yeah, okay, fine. And I don't look at in sufficient detail. My fault, maybe. But I want the debate, and debate doesn't exist unless you accept views which you don't share. And the importance of GB News is something that has worried the failing mainstream media sector. And they talk about its lack of impartiality, its self-serving conservative ideology, putting money in the pockets of self-serving politicians. It's largely onanistic, and it's not going anywhere except to pander to its its little audience. But that little audience is powerful. And we should have other little audiences with other channels to question and to restrain and encourage the bigger news broadcasters. Will GB News be bigger than BBC or Sky? No. No, it aims to be by 2028, just as Reform UK aims to be bigger than the Conservative Party. And in fact, I think at the moment its polling is better than the Conservative Party. It's gone over that little that little Rubicon. It's crossed the Rubicon. Does that mean more seats in Parliament? I think Lee Anderson has to resign himself to being the only one. But he's been the only one for a long time, hasn't he, really? And branding things. The other thing GB News does is it perpetuates the idea that there's a difference between news and conspiracy theory. So Neil Oliver and all his stuff, Tucker Carlson and Fox TV. These people are promoting conspiracy theories. No, they're just promoting ideas. If you don't agree with them, you might brand them a conspiracy theory. But we should be open to a discussion about anything. And then we should analyze it. And it's in the analysis. I can't say that I know, absolutely, whether something is right or something is wrong. Why would I know? But I'm open to that discussion. And I would discuss things with anyone. And I would also make a distinction between what someone says and who someone is. And so many people who I look at on the screen, on the television, I think, well, that's not really who you are. You're a very sweet person in real life. But everybody only knows you because of this nasty rhetoric. The nasty rhetoric doesn't define you. And You know, you want to look into somebody's eyes. I've looked into the eyes of evil people, some of them in Russia. Maybe we shouldn't even mention them by name. And there's a steely gaze. I've looked into the eyes of the powerful, and there's a steely gaze. And how do you distinguish one from the other? Well, you look at the works. When a powerful person enters the lift that you're in, you know you're in the presence of authority. It doesn't matter whether they're just saying, "Are we all going down?" or whether they're mute. You know when they walk into that little small space that you are standing in, that you are in the presence of power. But you don't always know if you're in the presence of evil. You have a sense sometimes. You have a sense of awe. But you have a sense of awe when you're in the presence of great good. And we only learn more by looking at the effects of somebody, looking at what somebody does, not what they say, what they do. And GB News, what does it do? Does it promote debate? Yes, I think it does, but only among a small group of people, because there aren't other channels. We need more GB News type channels if GB News is going to do some good. Otherwise, it's just a funnel. It's just it's just a pipe. And I don't know whether that pipe is attached to an old-fashioned gramophone or attached to the back end of my lavatory. I have no idea, and only time will tell, and a good deal of flushing.